Good morning. It's good to see you on this fine morning. I believe we have been very, very fortunate in the weather since the recent unpleasantness, if I can misuse an old phrase from Southern history. I am so glad that we've had a chance for things to begin to sink down into the aquifer rather than being on the surface of everything. So glad you're here. This is going to be a big day for some UUTC folks, and I've been telling people this morning already. Oh, by the way, I'm Bob Renjilian. I'm minister here. Use he, him pronouns. But for those of you who know, this is the day of our congregational retreat. Even though the slide up there said you could still register, you can't. They needed to have a head count for the meals and everything. But it's one of those days where I gear up for Sunday morning, and then I go home after whatever activities are here, and then I sleep. And that is not what I can do today, because I have to get in the car and go to the mountain afterwards, because our retreat starts this evening. I'm looking forward to it. We have a great start to our program tonight. For those of you who can't be there, you can think of it. We are going to have a campfire. For the first time since I've arrived, the weather is actually going to cooperate. We're going to have a campfire and s'mores outdoors. That is an achievement. And I have nothing to do with the weather, but that's what it did. We have a couple of announcements here. I like to recognize the major events, what time of the year it is, and what's going on. And so I include that in our announcements this morning. We have Coming Out Day was this week. This is the Sunday closest to Coming Out Day. And that was started back in 1988, I believe. And we as Unitarian Universalists have been right on the edge of making sure that we are open and welcoming. I'm wearing an extra pin today. All are welcome here with, I think, every single flag of every single LGBTQIA plus identities. And just to know that this is a place where we celebrate folks can be themselves, even in a culture where it seems as if folks are getting attacked for being themselves. So I think that was important to start our announcements. The next announcement is that while a lot of people still call this Columbus Day weekend, it is tomorrow Indigenous Peoples Day. And Indigenous Peoples Day, is the difference between Native American Heritage Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. Online, they said succinctly, Native American Heritage Day celebrates ancestors. Indigenous Peoples Day celebrates the 571 plus distinct Native peoples who exist today in the modern U.S. And those are two very different things. Now, this was an international movement, 1977, the International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. This is all from Wikipedia, so we hope it's right. Sponsored by the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, began discussing replacing Columbus Day in the Americas with a celebration to be known as Indigenous Peoples Day. And similarly, Native Americans were protesting and having demonstrations in New England around Thanksgiving time. And then in 1992, when Native Americans were seeing all the efforts being put into having tall sailing ships come and go into different ports and celebrating 1492, they, in Berkeley, California, in 1992, had the beginnings of what would be the protest for Indigenous Peoples Day. And so here we are, all these years later, still trying to figure out, oh yeah, it says on our calendar that it's Columbus Day weekend, but let's listen to voices that say Indigenous Peoples Day. So we've done that. Let's see, we have another announcement, very important. Tara McDonald has set up in the lobby a table for volunteering or donations for a brand new relief organization called Bald Creek Relief. Just got official 501c3 status as of Monday, and they've given money to somebody to get shelves because you can't really hand out supplies if you don't have shelves to put them on. And she would love to have donations to help get them reimbursed for that cost. And she's saying that other than Bread of Life here, this is probably the most impactful organization around, able to supply all other local smaller food, medical, household supply stations regionally. They need more shelving units. They need volunteers. They need more donations. So she's got photos and a video on her phone. We tried to get a TV set that could show it. You're going to have to get right up close and personal to see what Tara has. So that's out in the lobby. I will leave the announcements at that, even though there's plenty of what's going on in this congregation. I just know that we have it written down somewhere, someplace that you can read. You can look on the counters and see various other sign-up sheets and things to get ready for Power Up or whatever else. But please, just be paying attention. Thank you. At this time, I would like you to turn and greet one another in your worth and dignity.
Good morning. I'm Jackie Fricks. I'm your worship associate for this morning. And our chalice lighting reading is in unison today. If you will join me, it's the words of Erica Hewitt. The chalice, as a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, arose as a beacon of hope in an atmosphere of tyranny. The chalice arose as a sign of promise, and the marginalized would never be forgotten nor ignored because they are beloved and precious from the perspective of the holy. This morning, we remember all of the people who have been told explicitly or implicitly that they're anything less than whole, anything less than beloved. As we light our chalice, may we make our lives a beacon, a symbol of our promise to draw all wide, a sign that we will not rest until all means all.
We have several notes that have been written here for candles, and I have a few that I've written down too. This is the time in which we lift up in lights the things that we have brought into this space in our hearts. I will start with the ones that are written here. From Tara, gratitude for my rich community of helpers who help me help others, and for Lizzie Ross putting me with Bald Creek Relief. And a candle for Lem and Marilyn Miller, who will celebrate 70 years of marriage on October 16th. Yeah. And a joy and celebration for my husband Joe's 80th birthday from Sharon Gublow. Yeah. From Nancy Richards, I'm so thankful for our local Habitat for Humanity and all they are doing to try to provide repairs, assistance, and housing for those impacted by the hurricane. Yeah. And a candle, again from Nancy, celebrating the joy of power and running water and the pleasure of going on retreat at the mountain. We have a few candles of care as well. One, a candle for everyone who's volunteering, delivering needed items, making bag lunches, showing up at partner agencies to help, and giving money generously to aid organizations. Thank you. A candle as well for Marcia and Michael Coe, who remain out of their house as it was damaged, and the health issues that are a part of that. A candle for Don Odell, who had a procedure done last week, but is doing well at home. From Nancy Richards, please send prayers and healing thoughts to my brother John, who begins inpatient treatment in Boston today for leukemia. And from Vanessa and Ian, a candle of sorrow for the loss of David Broad, friend from their Georgia UU congregation. Let's light a light for those who are at home who have been unable to express in this space the things that they lift up in their hearts and prayers, and for those things held silently among those who are here in this room. May we remember that the sharing that we do here or in the coffee hour or as we meet and greet in the world helps us to weave together the fabric of community. Thank you.
Our opening words come from Leah Ungary. She is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. As a UU minister, she has served congregations throughout the country. She is a past president of the Unitarian Universalist for Jewish Awareness, co-author of the Skinner House book, Jewish Voices in Unitarian Universalism, and is a graduate of Starr King School for the Ministry. The opening words. This is a season of repair, a time to reflect on how we might endure when the life tears at us. We are held by the great book of life, in which is written that we will inevitably face deprivation and discomfort, longing and forgiveness. Each among us must contemplate our own place in it all. As those of us in relationship with Judaism mark the high holy days, our hearts fill with hope and fear, turning and settling, mystery and agency, accountability and acceptance. Let us gather today in somber celebration of our shared humanity and our personal power. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn is number 1000. And I think, is that in the teal book? Yes.
And you want one.
Morning has come.
If you have any knowledge of music whatsoever, you want a hymn book in front of you instead of just following the words with the Zoom crew on screen and the choir. Both our hymns today, John says I was bitten by some bug that infected me with odd choices. But both our both our hymns with their words really fit today. So I hope you will enjoy the message and the meaning even as you struggle through.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name's Kevin. I get to work with the wonderful kids here at UUTC. And this month in October, our theme is deep listening. And in that vein, we're going to be using the book, The Invisible Boy, written by Trudy Ludwig and illustrated by Patricia Parton. And it's a lovely book about listening to those who don't get listened to much. We have to listen with our eyes and with our ears and with our hearts so we don't leave anybody out. The Invisible Boy. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Nathan has a problem with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside way too much. And Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings, Micah and JT turn and start choosing kids for the kickball teams. The best players are picked first. The best friends are next picked after the best players. Then the friends of the best friends are picked. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances at Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Mason and her friends talk about the birthday party. The rope swing over the pool is awesome, says JT. Yeah, so is the water slide, says Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, said Madison. And everyone did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while all the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table, doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, and space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin as he eats with chopsticks. "What's that?" they ask as Madison points at Justin's food. Justin says, "It's bulgogi." What? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandmother makes it. Want to try some? One of the boys says, "No way, I'm not eating anything boogery." The kids laugh, all of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being made fun of or being invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his book back, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. And it's a note that says, "Justin, I thought your bulgogi looked good. Signed, Brian." At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and, of course, starts drawing. Justin comes up and says, "Are you Brian, right?" "Yeah. Thanks for the note." And just then, Emilio calls out for the tetherball court, "Justin, you're up next." So Justin says, "Sorry, I gotta go. By the way, that's a really cool drawing," he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off, and Brian heads toward Justin. "I'm already with Justin," says Emilio. "Find somebody else." Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. But Justin says, "Mrs. Carlotti says we can have groups of 2 or 3. We're only 2. So come on, Emilio. Let's let him work with us." "Well, okay, I guess." Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in the photograph. "Whoa, cool," says Emilio. "What kind of people do you think live in houses like that?" "I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them as we go through our story," says Justin. Brian smiles and takes out his lucky pen. And it's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone but him. "Brian," hears someone shout. "Hey, Brian, over here." Brian turns and sees Justin waving at him. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes his room for him at the table. And maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. So this month, let's think about all those around in our world and our community who are not listened to, and let's make room and space for them. Thank you. And now I'll invite KT up with our children's chalice candle, and we'll sing the kids out.
chance to give is a privilege. It's a true joy to be able to say, I have something. I have something that I can give that helps make something bigger possible than what I could do all by myself. This congregation is evidence of that, of people giving and helping and building. And I know it's not cold enough yet, but to snowball into something that has some substance. Also, we give so that others may be able to have access to the services that they need. And you have voted on a number of organizations, one each month, to be the focus of our generosity. The envelope in the collection basket is for Pisgah Legal Services. And I know on Friday they came to Transylvania County to do another workshop on how to sign up for FEMA relief. But they're here in our community to help those who need to navigate legal systems and documents in a world that may often treat such folks as invisible. They're the ones who call folks over to the lunch table. I hope that you will give generously. Please, give from love, whether it's to our basket or to the envelope for Pisgah Legal. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't ever turn towards you. What is given in love, we receive with great joy. Thank you. In whatever way you center yourselves, whatever way you pray, meditate, whatever way you take yourself deep or outside, this is that time for prayer and meditation. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here on this morning are overjoyed with the chances to go on with life out of the wreckage of nature's wrath. We know that life goes on and is happening for folks in and among our midst in ways that we celebrate and we have in sorrow. We have losses. We have fears. We have need for healing. In particular, this morning, we feel the loss with Ian and Vanessa of their friend David Broad. Our hearts go out to Don Odell as he recovers at home after his procedure. Our prayers go out to John, Nancy Richards' brother, as he starts his treatment for leukemia. We feel for those who have received recent medical diagnoses, who are now facing the trials and the energy-draining treatments that go with it. We feel for those who both celebrate and lament the situations of power, running water, being able to get out of the house, for those who can come and go from their houses still as they wish, and our hearts to those who cannot go into their homes, which are now occupied by molds and mildews and perhaps even critters. We are grateful for all the volunteers in our midst, those who jumped in, worked, gathered, smiled, helped, specifically for the local Habitat for Humanity, but for all who have been helping out in all the organizations. Our hearts lift up, O Spirit of love and life, for this is an example of the Golden Rule. We lift up joys for the 80th birthday for Joe, for the 70 years of marriage for Lem and Marilyn, and a joy for seeing each other's faces and knowing we are known, we are not invisible, we are real, we are valued, we are loved. These and the prayers of our hearts we hold now in the silence. In the names of all those known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen, blessed be. As I stroll over to the choir to sing with them, I believe, I'll tell you a bit about the lyrics during my sermon on this song. It fits so well. Thank you, Ethan, for playing along. I will be Ethan's page turner. Every week he has to show me exactly how to do that. Somebody in choir asked when I'm going to train my replacement. I would be a lousy trainer for someone, but I do advertise that Ethan deserves better than me to turn pages, so that if any of you would love to sit beside Ethan, watch the music and turn at the appropriate place, I will gladly relinquish. Thank you.
I wanted also to say something about Ethan. We are overjoyed that Ethan, who is a junior major at Brevard College in piano performance, is working his way into the music of our congregation. The offertory that you heard while the offering was taken was a Bach prelude, and it was played very, very well by Ethan. And he's also going to accompany the choir as we sing the song now. And I'm happy to say, if you look over in this direction, the guy in the black suit turning the pages is none other than our own Reverend Bob, who at his advanced age is learning yet a new skill. And we're very happy about that. I believe in the arrangement by Mark Miller.
The reading I have is from Reverend Connie Simon, she, her pronouns. She serves as the interim minister of the River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Bethesda, Maryland right now. She's committed to supporting each of us and finding our inner divine. She describes her ministry as helping people heal from the inside out so that they can do the outside in work our world so desperately needs. She's also said, I want to be a part of a faith that can sing, come, come, whoever you are, and mean it. This reading is called Missing Voices, and it's from the Promise and the Practice of Our faith worship packet. She says, when I started attending a UU church, I was excited by the promise of worship that would draw from the arts, science, nature, literature, and a multitude of voices. Indeed, some of the voices that Unitarian Universalists hear in worship each week belong to Thoreau, Emerson, Ballou, and others. Their words are beautiful, but they come from a culture and experience that's foreign to me. When do I get to hear voices from my culture? I quickly learned that other than the same few quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. and Howard Thurman's The Work of Christmas, it wasn't going to happen. I sit attentively and listen with my head to their voices, while my heart longs to hear more of our voices. I am a black woman. When I look around on Sunday morning, I don't see many people who look like me. In most congregations I visit, I don't see anybody who looks like me. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that I don't hear voices of people who share my experience. But it still hurts. I want to hear voices that tell the struggle of living under the weight of oppression in this culture of white supremacy. I want to hear the stories of trying to stay afloat in the water we swim in. I want to hear voices of living while black in America. I don't hear those voices in UU churches, so I have to supplement my worship by reading black theologians like Anthony Pinn and Monica Coleman. I read Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, and my favorite poet, Paul Laurence Dunbar. Though not a Unitarian or Universalist, Dunbar chronicled the African-American experience in the years following the Civil War and the emancipation of enslaved Africans, a time of opportunities for blacks as we migrated north in droves, seeking employment and education, but also a time of continuing segregation, racism, and oppression. Dunbar acknowledged this tension in his writing. We hear him long for joy and prosperity, while at the same time knowing that the system would conspire to keep true happiness just beyond his grasp. A pint of joy to a peck of trouble and never a laugh, but the moans come double, and that is life. That was a quote. Still, he was a champion of social justice, believing that God has sympathy for the plight of the oppressed and that his grace will be bestowed not on those who soar, this is his quote, not on those who soar, but they who plod their rugged way unhelped to God. For Dunbar, the struggle was real. 100 years later, hearing Dunbar express his frustration and give voice to the contradictions of our existence as African Americans encourages me and nourishes my soul. His voice speaks to my heart. He knows my pain, understands my sadness, my fear, and my rage. He understands the tears I cry as I pray for strength to get through another day in this world. He gives voice to my deep faith that real change is coming someday. He didn't see it in his lifetime, and I might not see it in mine, but I have to keep believing it's possible. That's the message many African Americans long to hear in church. I know that's what I need to hear every now and then. Will it ever happen? Or will we always have to go outside to hear our voices? If that's the case, maybe there's no place for us in Unitarian Universalism. The thought of leaving is painful, but so is being in a faith that ignores our voices. So, sermon today is listening for the missing voices. Now, I shared a reading this summer that said something from an African American woman, like a paraphrase, something like, maybe in your church you think that being told to sit still and be quiet is how you reach your connection to your power, your divine. But don't tell me, a black woman, to sit still and be quiet. The story that Kevin showed us today was somebody who, if you watch the illustrations very ingeniously, went from being a kind of dull black and white sketch to being something of vivid color when being included, seen, and respected. When we listen to someone and we reach out to them and know something about them, we are holding up something of value. We turn to each other on a Sunday morning and bow to the worth and dignity of everyone here. I know that congregants here do that out in life, that we are, in fact, listening and working. But I still have to preach it. I'm still moved to remind myself and everyone again and again to combat the things that have been made invisible. The song that we heard, I Believe, had a different title at the concert at Brevard College on Thursday. And by the way, just impressed, Ethan, with you and your compatriots and students who are like told, go home, go home. We can't support you here. There was a hurricane, go home. And then come back and have to perform. They missed 2 or 3 rehearsals right before their concert and stood up there and sang. Why was I singing with them? All right, so anyway, David Gresham, you know David Gresham, in charge of the choral programs there and all, but also Katie Swinney, who's my barbershop chorus director, is also one of the chorus directors at the college. And when they got to seeing that their concert, which was to include the Brevard High School students on it, wasn't going to have Brevard High School students because the Brevard schools are closed, then they wanted others to come sing. So barbershoppers showed up because we knew the very last song they were singing. We had practiced it, and we came up on stage at the very end to augment and support the chorus, the combined choruses at the very end. David Gresham explained before that point something that the college students themselves, these young adults were singing. It was the same words as the I Believe that we just sang, but to different music. And David explained, and this makes so much sense, David explained that the text is translated from what was scrawled on the walls below ground, what they had found at the end of World War II, a below ground space where Jews had been hidden from the Nazis. It makes so much sense to see that the song would be singing, I believe in the sun even when I can't feel it. I believe in love even when I can't feel it. All of these, I believe in this. In the midst of people who are oppressed, tyranny, hidden away by those who would go a little bit extra mile to help love and support one another, to reach out with the golden rule and helping others who are having to be invisible in order to survive. We have so many examples in our culture of ways in which peoples are almost entirely erased. I mentioned earlier that we have Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow. Because there are living, breathing Indigenous peoples here and now. We are standing on the lands of the Cherokee and so many others. And yet, it's not history. It's still living, breathing cultures and stories. Sometimes there's an advantage to invisibility. When the tyrants don't listen to you, don't want to hear you, you can be code talkers in World War II. Nobody can figure out what you're saying to one another because nobody's ever paid attention to your stories, your language structure. Some say that the Navajo were exploited to become code talkers for the U.S. in World War II, but on the other hand, it was a piece of patriotic duty. It was a piece of being invited to the table that they took. Even if you got just the last little end chair only one of your cheeks can sit on at the table, you're at the table. Maybe you find your way deeper into things. Black Hawk is said to have said, and I thank Jackie for finding this quote, "How smooth must be the language of the whites when they can make right look like wrong and wrong look like right." And Arundhati Roy from across another culture says, "There's really no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard." Some of you may have been watching TV, catching up on the news. I was interested to watch an interview, follow-up interview actually, because apparently he's in deep controversy, Ta-Nehisi Coates on MSNBC, talking about his new book out there, and some of the things that he's saying, he says he's trying to go deeper. What he said in the interview was, it's being brought, what his words are being brought into the current, you're on one side or another, on Palestinians and Israelis. And he's saying, I'm trying to go to the deeper place. The original folks who were setting up used words like, we are carving out of the desert this new nation. I'm trying to talk about how nation states have something seriously wrong built into them. Plural nation states. How when we say that's not the language they used or that's not what they meant, well, it is in their exact words. Words of colonizing in an era in which colonialism was not necessarily frowned upon as much as it is now. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm bringing his voice into the room with hope here. He said, I'm trying to go deeper when people are saying it was wrong that my people were slaves, but I would like slavery. Have we heard that? It was wrong that my people are slaves, but I would like to have slaves. He says you've got to get down to the systemic part and feel how wrong that structural piece is. No. It's not about erasing, demeaning, owning, subjugating, tyrannizing. It's not who finally gets a chance to do that. It's about how we listen to the marginalized voices in a way that it pulls us and tears us away from the things that are familiar to us because we were raised this way, to instead transform. We have so many ways in which, I said before, we have to watch our tongue in a previous sermon. We have so many ways in which we need to open our hearts. There are so many ways in which we are knowing we want to be friends and reach across boundaries. And yet on this weekend we have heaped on top of all many things Indigenous Peoples Day to counteract Columbus Day. National Coming Out Sunday, on top of a culture that is saying, don't say gay. Maybe I didn't name what you hold in your heart. Maybe I have spoken in ableist language and forgotten the ways in which the disabled would like to be heard, recognized, seen as whole. Maybe I've forgotten some gender-specific way in which I have not listened well enough. Maybe I am part of the group that needs to grow. I'm going to go visit an ENT and see if I can get my ears checked. No, honestly, my daughter says, Dad, my wife says, you're turning on the closed captions again and the volume is set at 22? That's a technical fix to hear one another. The heart fix, the mind fix is what I'm preaching about. What do we do to be able to tune out the tyranny and listen? Beneath those voices of tyranny are those in the marginalized who have something important to say and to contribute. Maybe our deep listening in that way will make a difference. Thank you. Imagine someone who has a little less power than us, a little less age, if not wisdom, singing from their voices this next hymn. What if some folks among us are singing this next hymn? Let's take it into our hearts as we rise and sing, and yeah, you better grab number 1012, When I Am Frightened, because it's, yeah, Reverend Bob, you picked a complicated one. Yeah, well, I sing, I can read music, I can do this. I want you to too. Make a joyful noise. It's not asked biblically that you make a perfect noise. Make a joyful noise.
When I'm uncertain, will you
throughout the end of the Jewish High Holy Days, into Indigenous Peoples' Day and beyond Coming Out Day. In whatever ways, you have a way of listening, of recognizing, inviting somebody into conversation. May you do so. May the flame that we lit this morning with the hopes for justice and connection carry on in your hearts. May the helper candle, that's always there to get things started, be something that you aspire to as you go out. And then return again next week in love. Blessings on all of you.